Hi there, this is Jess at Oldsilverarrow. Thanks for stopping by and saying hi. So today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag, which is a tag I've been watching for years and years and years, to the point that I don't remember where it came from. Every year I watch Emma from Emmy do it, and I am very excited to be bringing it to you today. I have a big stack of books here to talk about. So far I've read 54 out of 100 books, which is pretty good. I was really hoping that I was gonna finish a lot more books during the summer, because once the semester starts up again, I'm gonna be super busy and I'm gonna be reading a bunch of research heavy things that won't leave much time for fun things, because once I get into the weeds with my research, when I get home at the end of the day, I just want to like watch a movie and turn my brain off, and I don't want to sit and read. So I'm gonna try to pull as far ahead on this reading challenge as I can to make sure that we actually finish it this year. I have never gotten to 100 books. Never. Hopefully this year will be the year, but I mean, I guess you guys will be the first to know if it happens. So yeah, without any further ado, let's get into the tag. So the first prompt we have is the best book that you've read so far in 2024. And for me, that is easily The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. I got this book from Book of the Month, and it was absolutely fantastic. So this book has a lot to do with generational curses and time loops and time travel. And basically every Farrow woman goes insane at some point. There's a certain age where they start to hear voices and see things that aren't there and just kind of lose it. So at the opening sequence of this book, June Farrow's grandmother has just passed away, but towards the end of her life, June was taking care of her, and her grandmother described this kind of like downfall that she was experiencing as being in two places at once, which really kind of shows what you're going to be getting into with this book. The time travel was really well written. It had specific rules, which is something that I really like when it comes to a book like this. I feel like if you have a magic system where everything just kind of happens all willy-nilly, it can get really confusing or way too convenient, and this definitely wasn't one of those books. This book has really deep family relationships and really, really interesting characters. I was attached to every single one of them. I got so into this. This was one of those books where when I finished it, I almost wanted to just turn right back to the beginning and start reading all over again, because it was that good. I feel like you would definitely learn a lot more about this book on like a second run through, because you're kind of confused the first time through. You don't know exactly what's happening. But this was excellent. I will say though, like with some of these deep family bonds, especially bonds between like female family members, like I cried a lot, so I don't think that it's necessarily a sad book, but maybe it was just the mood I was in when I was reading it, but it definitely made me tear up. So just kind of keep that in mind if that's not the vibe you're looking for and you're pretty easily emotional. There goes my cat. But yeah, this is the best book I've read so far. The second prompt is the best sequel that you've read so far in 2024, and I'm gonna go with Before We Say Goodbye. This is not technically a sequel. This is the fourth book in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold sequence. I really enjoy these books. So the basic concept is that there's a small, nearly underground cafe in Tokyo where it's possible to travel back in time, but the rules are so convoluted and complicated that hardly anybody does it. This is the fourth book in the series, like I said, and each book is divided up into 4 short stories following different patrons who come into the cafe looking for something specific. One of the biggest complaints that I've heard about this series is that it gets pretty repetitive, and that is true. Like these books, some of the scenarios repeat necessarily because, people have similar relationships to each other. But I think these books are all fantastic, and I cry at a lot of the stories because, it's like, think of what you would do if you could go back in time and speak to a specific person. Like, yeah, it can get pretty emotional, but I love these. And I just haven't read a lot of sequels this year at all. I've been starting a lot of series and not finishing them, so this was the best one so far. Okay, the next prompt is a new release you haven't read yet, but you want to. This isn't exactly a new release, but I'm gonna go with A Study in Drowning by Ava Reid. I got this book last Christmas and I still haven't picked it up, and it's because I've read Ava Reed's 2 other books, and I loved them both so much that I know, like, I'm hesitating to start this because I know I'm going to love it and I don't want it to be over, so I can't force myself to pick it up. That's the problem I keep running into with this book, and it's happening with a whole host of other books too. Like, as soon as I think that I'm going to really enjoy something, I hesitate to start it because I don't want it to end, but I need to get to this before the year is over, like, for sure. So the next prompt, I'm a little sad to work with, but it's your biggest disappointment, and I would definitely have to say that mine was The Ministry of Time. So this book was sold to me as like a fun, happy, like cross-time romance, cross-era, guy from the past, girl from the future type thing. That's what I thought it was going to be, and that's kind of not what it was at all. The romance is honestly barely a part of the story, and also the main character doesn't have a name throughout the entire book. And I know that was intentional, and it was meant to be like this deep thing that was going on and going on to the narrative with, like, you know, all the governmental criticism and everything that we're dealing with in this plot. But more than anything, it was just confusing. Even though the book is told from her point of view, I got really confused at some points of who was talking, whether anyone was ever talking to her. I had no idea because she didn't have a name. We didn't have any kind of address to give her. And overall, I just found this book to be pretty frustrating. Nothing is ever explained at all, which normally with books like this, especially with, you know, sci-fi technology and things like that, typically the first third to a half is pretty confusing as your character gets acclimated to the new scenario or the new technology that they're dealing with. But in this one, it all kind of flies under the radar and you're never really totally sure what's going on, which I didn't like. I like to know how things work, especially in a book that's going to involve time travel. I'm realizing I've read a lot of time travel books this year. This was not my favorite kind of time travel. And also the main character was pretty much as confused as I was the entire time, which, I mean, is fine if you can pull that off, but I just found it to be super frustrating. So I don't know. I'd say it's worth the read. The concept is really interesting. I just don't think it was executed as well as it could have been. So I'm curious to hear what other people think of this, though. I'm sure my opinion's probably not in the majority. Okay, so the next prompt is biggest surprise, and by far my biggest surprise this year has been Fourth Wing. I've heard so many conflicting things about this book. People that absolutely love it, absolutely hate it, think it's garbage, think it's wonderful, think it's the best thing since sliced bread. So I finally picked it up. I didn't have high expectations because I've been, you know, watching the TikTok girlies love and hate this book. So I just kind of tried to go in as neutral as possible, but one thing you should know about me is I'm a sucker for dragons. If it's got dragons, I'll read it. Point blank, period. So I loved this book. I thought it was great. I had so much fun. Like, sure, I mean, it pulls from a lot of YA tropes and scenarios and things that you definitely have seen in other things, especially growing up reading like Harry Potter, Hunger Games, Aragon, all of those books. Like, I definitely see the influence. But this was so much fun. I had the same feeling reading this book as I did when I was reading like Divergent, Percy Jackson, things like that for the first time. I know that if I had read this in like high school, it would have become my whole personality for at least a year, for sure. This is a fun book. If you're not looking for like the, you know, the deepest thing ever, which, I mean, I read for fun, I read for entertainment, this was great. This will entertain you. I burned through this in like a day and a half. And she's thick. Day and a half. This was wonderful. I have not read Iron Flame yet though, so please don't tell me. Don't tell me anything. Also, there's another prompt for most anticipated release for the rest of the year. I don't typically keep up on new releases. Onyx Storm. I'm gonna burn through Iron Flame and then I'm gonna get to Onyx Storm. That's gonna be my biggest new release. So next up is your favorite new author. This one right here. This book, like I said, I'll read anything with dragons, but this book was so excellent. Absolutely magnificent. Beautiful. This was like, and I'm just comparing it to like movies that I know really well. If you like island adventure like Moana, and you like field science, field research like Indiana Jones, here you go. With sea dragons, magical tattoos, childhood best friends, all kinds of weird magic, pirates, action adventure, magnificence. This main character, honestly, when I was reading this book, the way that she has like a visceral love for nature and a desire to protect certain elements of her environment reminded me a lot of Princess Mononoke. So I loved this all the way around. This book was fantastic. I hope there will be more. I haven't looked up to see whether there are or not. I'll be so happy if there are. This book was absolutely fabulous. You should definitely pick this up because I've seen almost nobody talking about it. I hope people are talking about it because it's great. Up next is newest fictional crush, Aldo. He's a math nerd. He's a professor. He is a wonderful little confusing guy. This book was so existential. It was very in the main characters' heads, both of them, not just one. This was awesome. I was kind of slow getting through it just because of how existential it is and how stream of consciousness and everything, but this was great. It's also set in Chicago, which is one of the cities that I know the best. So anytime they talked about a location, my little brain was like, I've been there. I know that spot. So that was really exciting for me because I'm terrible with geography. But Aldo, newest fictional crush. I love this man so much. Next up is a book that made you cry. A lot of books make me cry that aren't necessarily your typical sad book, so just keep that in mind. I'm gonna go with This Time Tomorrow. This is another time travel book. So basically, the main character in here is 40 years old, and on her birthday, I believe, I read this in like February, so it's been a while, she finds out that she is able to repeat one specific day of her life over and over and over again. The thing is, the day that she's able to repeat, she's able to talk to her father, whom in the present day is very ill and in the hospital. So you can imagine all the emotions that go along with that. This book was fantastic. It made me sad. It made me happy sad, like a bittersweet kind of feeling. This book felt like growing up, which, you know, comes with its own baggage. So I would say you definitely need to be in the right headspace to read this book. If you're feeling a little bit lost in life, this might help you out. So keep that in mind. The next prompt is a book that made you happy. I actually have two for this one. The first one is The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. This is about a couple who gets married in order to get family housing in college for really cheap. And then a few years later, the guy comes back to the main female character and basically says, hey, surprise, we were never actually divorced, and also my family owns this like super big company and I'm mega rich, but in order for me to get my inheritance, you have to come with me to my sister's island wedding and pretend that we're still married. So this is told from a dual perspective. Happy, fun, so great. The banter's awesome. The main characters are both so hilarious in their own way. I had nothing but fun with this and zero frustrations, which is rare for a romance book. They gotta be a certain type of people, and accomplished. This was awesome. The other book that I have for this prompt is Ready or Not. Now, keep in mind, this book probably isn't for everybody because it does feature the accidental pregnancy trope, but that's kind of the whole premise of the book. This is a childhood best friends to lovers, absolutely flawless, and like the accidental pregnancy like happens before the book opens, so that's kind of the whole premise of it. But the male main character in this book, I love him. He's wonderful. He's a silly, goofy golden retriever. He's wonderful. This book was nothing but happy as well. I wasn't frustrated with these characters, and they just brought me joy. So the next prompt is the most beautiful book you've bought, and I feel like it needs to be this one. This one fits my whole vibe so well. I would love a pet crow more than anything. This book is told from kind of like a triple perspective across time. This is about a family of women who are interconnected through like this sort of like magical curse. I can't tell you much more than that without spoiling some things, but you've got witchcraft and all kinds of stuff in this book. It was great. I liked it a lot. A lot of bugs though. A lot of bugs. Some people might not like that. But I thought this was awesome, and the cover is just so pretty. Like, even the back. Like, I want my journal to look like this. She's gorgeous. See that? So pretty. The little butterfly. This was great. And the final question is, what books do you need to get through before the end of the year? So many. So many. I have stacks and stacks, but here are a few. Let's see what I got here. Tress of the Emerald Sea, just bought this. This is going to be my first Brandon Sanderson book. I decided to start with a standalone to see how I feel about his writing before I commit to any of the big series. So this will be before the end of the year, hopefully. What else do we have? Wheel of Time, Eye of the World. I really want to start this series, but I'm terrified because look how thick. Yeah, so scared. Haven't picked it up yet. We also have The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I also haven't read Babel, and I have a copy of it somewhere. I've only got The Poppy War because I want to see if I enjoy this series before I buy the rest of it, which is more responsible than I usually am, so be proud, be proud. I've also got A Darker Shade of Magic. I own this box set, haven't started it yet, which is a crime because I love V.E. Schwab so much, and I've read so many of her books already. What else? Legendborn and Bloodmarked. I bought both. Look at that spine. Gorgeous. Need to read these. Plan on binging them. Might take these on vacation. We will see. Then we've got Iron Widow. I've had this for way too long. I got it on sale at Target like last year. Still haven't gotten to it. Then we've got In the Lives of Puppets by T.J. Klune. I've read Under the Whispering Door and The House in the Cerulean Sea. So this is another one of those where I'm like, I'm going to love it, so I don't want to start it. That's what's holding me back here. What else do we have? I've got The Prison Healer, which I heard in one of Sunny Kim's videos that this is absolutely fantastic, which is why I bought it. So we shall see. When the Moon Hatched. I just got this book too because I've been seeing it all over TikTok and the cover is gorgeous, and also dragons. I'll read anything with dragons. The problem I have with this one so far is that there's like a 25-page glossary in the very front. That's why I haven't started it, because I don't know whether I need to read the glossary to understand the story. So that's an issue. And then we have Iron Flame. I need to start this. I'm scared. People have way more mixed feelings about Iron Flame than they do about Fourth Wing, so I am terrified. And then we've got In the Shadow of the Gods. This has been on my shelf for a while. I need to just pick it up and start reading. And then we have What the River Knows. This is one of my Book of the Month books that I need to get to very soon, hopefully. It's been sitting around for too long. And then the last one we've got Of Fate Inked in Blood. I have started this, but the print on the pages is so small that it makes me feel discouraged. So I just didn't keep going. I need to keep going. I'm going to read it. I'm gonna finish it. I need the motivation. I need the motivation to finish it, so we'll see. Yeah, that's pretty much what I've got.